Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. It's been quite some time since we all met, I guess. It's great to be back. We just came out of executive session, so we're going to move right into our regular business meeting at this point. And Dr. Benante will start us off.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, actually, sorry.
Yep.
I should make note that the next Board of Ed meeting will be Tuesday, September 4th at 7 p.m. in the band room.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Welcome to the members of the community that are here this evening, as well as our Board of Education members. Before I start on our first topic, I just wanted to express appreciation for our buildings and grounds and maintenance crew. I had the chance to walk through our buildings today, and our schools are gradually coming back online, if you will. The floors have a fresh coat of wax. Several of our teachers are making their way back into the building, and even saw some students who are walking around the main building today. So we're excited about the start of the school year in a few weeks, but enjoy what's left of summer. Our first item today, or my first discussion item, pertains to fund balance for the last school year, and Ms. Dinio may join me in this. There's a recommendation towards the end of the agenda on how to use some of the fund balance that we have remaining from the 2017-2018 school year, and I just want to speak to that for a few moments. Part of the fund balance we would like to commit to our capital repair reserve fund, and also another chunk we would like to commit to our capital reserve fund. As you're likely familiar with, there's several projects that need to be addressed in and around our campus with respect to our facilities, and the use of our funds in both of these areas will allow us to plan to do that work over the course of the school year, or immediately address some of the outstanding issues. So if there's any questions about that, I certainly want to respond to those before it comes to your vote. Ms. Dinio can also speak to that as well. Any questions now that we can answer for you?
Well, it's on the agenda later.
It is.
When we can look at the actual numbers together.
Sure.
Do you want to?
So we'll hold those questions for that time?
I think so.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Second item tonight, I want to introduce Mr. Robert Hoffman from Hoffman Engineering. Mr. Hoffman's firm, in coordination with our architect, conducted some advanced testing on some of the pipes. As you know, those pipes have been a source of discussion for some time, so there was a recommendation for advanced testing, and Mr. Hoffman's crew conducted that testing a few weeks ago. A copy of his report is in front of you. Julia had passed that around, and Mr. Hoffman, once you have a microphone, you are on. Oh, almost on.
Thank you. My name is Bob Hoffman. I'm not the owner of Hoffman Engineering. That's my father. So same initials, same everything. Yeah. So it'll be real seamless when he finally does retire. But anyways, you are right. We were hired by Fuller D'Angelo, the architect, to take a look at the steam piping. We have prepared a number of reports. What I've presented for you today is our last and final report. Our first report covered the failures that had happened already, and I had samples of pipe that I could analyze, and which you did, and I actually brought them with because we keep them for a while. But this report then follows on as to what we recommended in our first report, which was collect some additional data just to see, are there any other areas within the system that would be susceptible to failure, and we could get ahead of it. You could get ahead of it. To that end, we worked with the maintenance crew to access areas within the building underneath some of the crawl spaces within the utility corridor in the boiler room. And what we did is we collected ultrasonic thickness readings of the existing pipe, and we made visual notations of the observations of the pipe that we saw. What we found was the majority of the pipe, depending on whether it was 1928 or the 1960 vintage, or even I think in 1980 vintage, the majority of the pipe wall thickness was in very good shape. What is key to understand in our work is that the failures that we did see The mechanism was from the outside in. In other words, it corroded from the outside until it corroded through the entire pipe wall, and then your steam leaked. Measuring the wall thickness provides at least how much wall thickness is left. It's a good data point to have, but what we were looking for primarily was corrosion, and very few areas had corrosion. Most of your pipe was well insulated, in good condition, with a few exceptions. The exceptions are noted in our report. The first one I talk about is sample 3. It's technically not sample 3, it's just in the area of sample 3. I couldn't reach sample 3, it was too high. But we were able to find a supply and return pipe right near there that measured quite well. I will then direct your attention to figure 2 of our report. Figure 2 shows the condition of a pipe in the corner of the boiler room. I have a distance shot, a close-up shot, and then I show an example of one of the previous pipes that had failed. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe the sample that failed was adjacent to this one here. This serves the radiator in the side entrance of the middle, I guess it's the middle school, in the boiler room, so it's just underneath. I showed that picture because it looks very similar to the one that's currently in service, and we made a recommendation that perhaps that should get some attention. But you can see the other pipes and the other figures in figure 3 and figure 4, the pipe's well insulated and the surfaces are in very good shape. The other sample that we thought was worth the note was sample pipe number 4, which is again in the boiler room. It's figure 1 at this point, and that feeds a little bathroom, I guess, off the boiler room towards the carpentry shop, I'm going to say, making it up. There's a saw there. I assumed it was the carpentry shop. So those are the 2 areas that were of note. Everything else measured very well. There was a lot of pipe wall thicknesses left that remains. The corrosion rates were very, very low, meaning, thousandths of an inch per year, less than a thousandth of an inch per year. It's tiny. So our conclusion was to just keep an eye on the one that we noted for perhaps preemptive repair, and everything else looked rather acceptable. Are there any questions?
So just so I'm relating to what we have in front of us, the figure page 2 and figure page 3.
Yes.
Those are the 2 pages that show us the pipes that you would recommend that we do something about.
No.
correct?
Figure 1 and figure 2. Figure 2, figure 1 is appears to be an original piece from 1924, 28. And that is experiencing corrosion on the outside.
Mr. Hoffman, just to clarify, so I think we're talking about the same thing. You said figure 1, but it's on figure page 2. I just want to make sure we're all looking at the same.
Those are 2 different areas.
So this photo right here.
That figure there is sample number 4,
Correct.
and that feeds the bathroom.
Got it.
Sample number 3 on figure 2 feeds the entrance radiator. They're not the same. Figures 2A and 2B are of the same. Figure 2C is an existing one we've already examined, and I show that for reference.
So just to clarify for me, remember we're not in the school year yet, so my head's not quite there. Which one specifically are you recommending to be replaced?
Figure 2B.
2B. Got it.
Figure 2B. And that is the only one that you're recommending?
As a priority.
As a priority.
Figure 1, sample 4, I believe the other end of it might have been abandoned, but
Figure 1,
that would be the only 2 areas of note.
sample 4.
Figure 1 and figure 2B. Sample 4 and sample 3.
Sample 4 and sample 3.
The balance of the figures show pipe to be in good condition underneath the insulation.
Thank you.
Anything further?
Quick question. Just for, I know that you took sorry. I know that you took specific samples at specific designated locations.
Yes.
And this may not be a question for you. This actually may be a question more for buildings and grounds. Would there be other locations in which you would experience a similar environment that would lead us to think that that might be, because you're only recommending replacement of the things that you actually looked at.
Correct.
Yep.
But we did try to find locations that would recreate the situation that we observed. I conducted a walkthrough with the architect and your maintenance teams here to find areas I could reach. Now, there are areas I can't reach. There's a crawl space along the front of the building that we can't get through, and there's another chase that runs west from the boiler room towards, I guess it's behind the IT classrooms back there. There's a chase there we can't reach. Where I can't reach, I can't commit and give an opinion on, but we were able to crawl. Everywhere we were able to crawl, we tried to measure and tried to get something, with one exception, and that was underneath the stage. We'd walk the stage, and I list that in my report, table 1, as item number 16. We didn't measure it. It appeared to be relatively replaced. I don't know why that was, but it looked good, and I didn't measure it. It was underneath the stage.
So
Did that answer your question?
page 3 identifies basically the 16 locations.
Yes,
that
table 1 identifies the 16 locations we attempted to collect readings from. We did not collect readings on number 16 and number, I think,
On the next.
13, yeah. And the reason we didn't collect it on 13 is the insulation looked suspect, and I didn't want to create a hazard.
Good. Okay. Are there any other questions this time? So I guess the next steps would be to bring this report to B&G and bring them up to speed on where we're at, and then take it from there.
That's right.
Thank you.
Did you have?
The good news sounds like we don't have to replace all the pipes in the school, which is like really fantastic news.
It
Not
says-
replace them, but build in a whole new
New
steam transfer system. So this is really great.
That $3 to $4 million ticket item
Yeah,
might be able to
yeah.
come off the
Yeah,
list.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, at a much, much, much reduced figure for sure, because there is
There's
some
some
work that we have
reduced,
to
sure.
do, but not to the extent that we originally anticipated, I guess is.
Great.
All right.
That was good news.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman.
You're welcome.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Yes.
I had one question related to Phil's report. Sorry. Your opening remarks, you thanked the Buildings and Grounds
Yep.
team for doing such a great job.
Yes.
Usually at the beginning of the school year, the board has a walkthrough, like before our very
Okay.
first meeting. And it's because I think there is something in our policies that the board does a walkthrough at the beginning of the year. I'm not saying that it needs to be on the 4th. It's just that when you mentioned that, it reminded me that's often when we do that.
Reminding me.
And it
That's
could
on my
be,
list right here. I was thinking the same thing.
and it could be whenever. But I
Well,
just wanted to bring that to
Sure.
your attention.
Two ideas. One, we're going to do something by the end of the summer. We haven't set the date yet for our building and grounds crew, as well as the remaining summer help that we have, just to extend an appreciation towards them or for them before the summer ends. We were targeting a date during that last week of August to do so. So the board is most welcome to join us during then, as well as. I was going to mention this at the end. September 4th is our first day with faculty and staff, and we're going to have a gathering. We'll make some opening remarks and whatnot at that time. You'll be receiving an invitation from me to attend that session, which if you'd like to do a walkthrough at that time or after we're done with the welcoming of staff on September 4th, you're more than welcome to. We can walk the buildings then. There'll be a lot of staff here during that time, obviously, whereas it'll be a bit quieter in the buildings later this summer.
And I don't know what
which is
the
really 2
rules
weeks.
are with policy, if it has to be in the beginning of the year, because I was also thinking that it might be beneficial to do the walkthrough once we have a new facilities director in place to, because the walkthrough for the board is really about us getting to ask questions and see what the direction is for the year, or we're going to fix this, or we need to fix this, or oh look, we fixed this, or it's and it's a nice time to connect with the facilities director. So I don't know if we can push it.
I don't
I don't
remember
know.
the policy, although I don't remember the policy stating that it has to be before a certain time.
So I think whenever.
We can look it up. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather wait for, if possible, a new director of facilities to join us. I'm
that
not
makes
sure that I'm sure all the buildings and grounds people would be more than happy to walk us through, but I'm sure they're also busy preparing to get the school ready,
Yeah.
last minute items, so. Okay, perfect. At this time, is there any communication from the public? No? Okay. Moving on to item E, those are the information reports for us to review, and they'll be approved at next business meeting. Item F, consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion, please?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
I have a question there, and I can't find it now, as I was just looking through to see if I could leave it open. I'm sorry. There was something that I read here that made me think that it looked like we approved the code of conduct instead of just discussed the code of conduct, but it looked like the sentence ended. But now I can't find it. But I found it when I was reading through it earlier in the day, so.
We did approve the committee to be,
Correct.
Yeah, but it looked like
to continue.
But I thought the same thing, because I didn't see it in the minutes, but in the draft of the code of conduct that we have, it actually shows July 2nd as a
As the
date.
approval date.
As an approval date, and I couldn't.
I think we did approve it.
You approved the charge of the committee on July 2nd.
Right.
And the creation of the committee, or
We're
recognized.
supposed to be approving
the-
the code of conduct tonight.
Right, but it, on the document, it does say we approved it on July 2nd. So I just think we need to look at it and make sure that it's not,
Margaret, you're so good at catching those little details.
I am the little detail person for
So
sure.
good.
Here, Haldane Code of Conduct discussion. The board requested an update to the modifications page. Motion by President Daly, second by Trustee Clements. Approved by all five. The board approved the following, : and then it stops.
I think we could just reword that to say, approve the charge of the Code of Conduct Committee.
Right, because we didn't approve the code of conduct. We approved the charge,
Correct.
which changed a little bit.
Changed a little bit, yes.
Right. So, yes, I am the one who reads
Good.
those things and looks for colons.
So should we,
Can we
with,
approve it with that minor change? Yeah.
okay.
I'll just edit it.
Yeah.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving with Margaret's minor change, aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for that, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret.
Okay, consent agenda financial. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
I had asked if now's a good time, Dr. Benante, just if you can give a little information about the SRO funding piece. That's something we talk about. Maybe just a reminder for everybody.
So one, I see Deputy Shelter's here, so welcome back, Matt. It's good to see you again. And we're looking forward to working with Matt at the start of next school year. So our current agreement with the county is that the county provides half of the funding for the school resource officer, and the district provides funding back to the county for the other half. That's inclusive of benefits. And just something also to be mindful of whenever we were to contract with the county to have a police officer on campus for special events and which may not include Mr. Shelters, it may, depending on the event. We also have a separate rate established for that. But as far as the SRO's contract specifically, it's split cost between the county and between the school district.
When I looked through that contract, I didn't see an amount. I didn't know. There is one? Okay, I didn't read it page by page.
Equal payments.
Oh, there, okay,
Yeah,
thanks. I
it's
just missed it. Thank you
Equal
for pointing
payments
that
of
out.
about
I
7,000.
remembered that. Thank
You
you.
had to do some math in your head. That's right.
Yeah.
It wasn't straightforward. And then the if Mr. Shelters does overtime, which happens,
It does.
Often actually when we bring him in for more events, that's on the school to pay.
Correct.
We
That's
don't
in addition
split
to.
those
We do not split that
costs
cost.
with the county.
Correct.
One thing that I know had been in the talks when Parkland happened, and I know Matt's looking at me like, you're crazy, it's never going to happen, where the county was, there was being pressure put on, actually, county and representatives to offer SROs at the expense of the county. Yeah. Have we heard anything? Oh, would you like to fill us in? Not really? You-
There's no new news on that. The state legislature is not in session right now. When they do come back, they're planning on revisiting that, as well as revisiting the amount that SPOs can make. It's kind of all wrapped up into the same document. I remember, or if you remember, they talked about raising. Right now, what the SPO is a retired law enforcement member working in the schools. They talked about raising that annual cap that they have as $30,000 up to $50,000. I believe the last time it was raised was 15 or 20 years ago. So they're really looking to raise that up to draw more SPOs in, because part of the legislation is not that you need an SRO specifically in every school district. It talks about giving the school districts the option of having either an SRO or an SPO, and part of their salary, if not all of their salary, depending on what they can work out, is going to be reimbursed to each school district from state funding. So that would assist us greatly if we could get the money back from the state, but they haven't voted on it yet. They're still tweaking things here and there, seeing who they can appease with it. And when they come back into session, hopefully they'll vote on it and we'll get an answer.
Great. Thank you for that update.
You're welcome.
I think the history was that wasn't it after Newtown's incident, there was payment for, there was, the county was providing resources for the SROs to the school districts. And then they
And
cut
then
it
they
back.
cut back.
It was like a 2-year program, and then they cut back the funding. Is that right? Julia's giving me the head up. Yeah. Then they cut back the funding, and then the schools had to decide, okay, well, now what do we do? Do we pay for it? Do we not pay for it? And then it became more on the schools to manage.
And then Parkland happened.
And Parkland happened.
And then we came
Now
full
we talk
circle
about it again. Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you. So all those are there others? Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a really minor question. So in the list of all the goods that are surplus or obsolete, it's really clear where some of them are going to go. And I don't really care, but I was just curious. Like something like broken seats, wooden tables, those just get thrown away. Those and the books and the videotapes.
We have a few vendors that we reach out to and we provide them with the list and see if they're interested in buying them. I don't like to throw away, the tapes and that. Someone may use them. We do have someone in the office that really tries to turn over every stone to find a place for them. The broken chairs and seats and that, I wouldn't want to sell that and then have someone be injured when they sit down in their chair.
No, of course not. That makes
So
sense.
that's going to be thrown away.
No, that makes
But
sense.
as far as the books and the tapes, we do try a couple of different places that may be interested in buying them.
Right. I may try to apparently there's a veterans group that will take like used books and tapes like that. I'll try and find the name and get it to you.
Okay. Because then if no one bids on them, then
You throw
I
them
can
away.
throw them away
Or donate them.
Donate
Yes,
them.
perfect. Okay.
But I can't donate them without trying to sell them.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I have a general question and then a specific question. The general question is, Dr. Benante or Ann, the Special Class Consortium Agreement, I think it would be certainly useful for me and probably for others. What is it and why is it important?
So we have students who require special education services to a depth beyond what we can provide here. So the consortium allows us to access special class programs for those students that we may not have here, and likewise we have a program here that other districts may not have the number of students necessary to create their own program, and they could send their students here. So that's the gist of the agreement.
And it's just with Putt Valley, us, and Garrison?
Correct.
Okay, great.
In addition, I believe, and Ann, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we do benefit in other ways in terms of health insurance. Do we still, well, that's through the BOCES consortium. Sorry. Two different things. Sorry, it's been a while since we're talking.
Got to get back into this one. The second was a specific thing in budget transfer, and I apologize for not bringing this up earlier, so you may not know off the top of your head. But I noticed that there was a transfer in the coaching salaries line, and so the general question would be, under what circumstances do we have salary transfers? Why do they happen, and why would they happen over the course of the year? And specifically, do you know why this one happened?
I can't speak to the specific one that you might be speaking about. Usually when there's a salary transfer in a budget line, it's because someone is being paid out of a budget code other than where we put the money at budget time. It's just a simple of payroll didn't match the budget when the person was entered in. And instead of correcting payroll, it's easier to just move the money to where they were charged. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, if there are no additional questions or comments, all those in favor of
Aye. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I was eyeing. Did you have
Did you have another question?
Oh, yeah. It sounded a little.
It sounded like, oh wait, I
have
got
a
a
question.
question. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No problem. Okay, moving on to consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion or comments?
If I may, I just
Sure.
want to extend a congratulations first to Ms. Story and Ms. Horgan, who've both announced their retirements, although Ms. Horgan's is going to be a little bit further down the road. I wanted to express my appreciation to them for their years of service to Haldane. And I also want to extend my appreciation to Dr. Shoa, who is going to be resigning to take a new position in his hometown. And Dr. Shoa and I have only had 6 weeks together, but in that 6 weeks, it's been very positive. I've been very impressed by Tony. I'm certainly going to miss him. He's been a good support to me in my transition, but we wish him the best of luck in Ridgefield.
Great. And I'm going to echo those comments. It's been a pleasure working with Tony and wish him all the best. And we still have some time
We do.
with Ms. Story and Ms.
Yes.
Horgan. So, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to unfinished business. Approval of
Period
six-period
assignments for 2018-2019. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the 6th period assignments for 2018-2019 as indicated below.
May I have a motion?
Second.
Before we approve, normally, I know what the board is used to seeing, we're used to seeing names attached to this. Right now, we're approving the positions, the names will come to us.
Correct. So first, it's a procedural thing. We should be approving the positions or the assignments. Then we should be posting them. And then we would align the names with those once they've been posted and the staff can
I just wanted that clarification because it's just a little different than what we've normally done. So thank you
Thank you
for
your
clarifying.
flexibility.
So all those in favor? Aye.
The next item is the approval of the Haldane School District Code of Conduct for 2018-2019. And the recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the Haldane Central School District Code of Conduct for 2018-2019 as presented.
I have a motion.
Motion?
Second.
Can we discuss?
Sure.
So,
Grab the mic.
code of conduct is one of those things that I've been
Passionate about?
passionate about. That's a good word. Thank you. For a long time, and as I looked at this, I'd like to start by thanking the Code of Conduct Committee for all of the hard work that they did to add that extra part for the extracurricular activities and that whole piece. That was the big charge for this year. That was a lot of work, and they put that together. However, as I'm reviewing it, that the whole piece at the beginning, there's still some things on there that need some tweaking. So what I would like to suggest is that we approve this so they have something to work with for the school year. But maybe that the Code of Conduct Committee can come back to us in December with some more tweaks of the bulk of the document. That way they'll have something to work with and they'll have that extracurricular activity together, that piece together and workable. But there's still some work that needs to be done on the main document.
If I may.
Sure.
Thank you, Margaret. I just also would like to express an appreciation to Ms. Sniffen and also Ms. Shields for working on this over the last few months. I think we came to a realization that this is a document that has gone through many iterations and has somewhat been evolving and likely is in need of being completely rewritten. I think the base of the document is probably on an old version of Microsoft Word. Now it's in a Google Doc, and when you're transferring documents from one platform to another, you lose some formatting. There's been segments that have been addressed over the years. I think you alluded to one in particular from last year regarding extracurriculars and athletics that's been added in. So the voice, if you will, has changed in the document over the years. So just want to express I'm in agreement. We need to have a code of conduct, obviously, going into the school year, but there's likely a rewrite that needs to occur with the document to bring the voice, the active and present, but consistent throughout, and addresses some of the unique formatting features of the document that we seem to have lost in its evolution, I'll say. So thank you for that.
Great. And I too want to express my thanks. I've been to several of those committee meetings this past year, and it's not always easy to bring groups of people together with different ideas, and it's a challenge, and it takes time, and we recognize that it's going to continue to take time, and it's a ever-evolving work of art. Let's call it that. So thank you. But for the moment, all those in favor of approving the code of conduct that's been brought before us today so that we may commence the school year with something, all those in favor? Aye.
And then this piece is going to say reauthorized today, not 7/2.
The front.
Okay,
Right?
right. Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is the approval of the amendments to the charge for the Haldane Code of Conduct Committee 2018-2019. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the amendments as noted below to the charge for the Haldane Code of Conduct Committee.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to new business.
Okay, this is the approval of the CSE CPSE placement recommendations. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the recommendations of the Committee on Special Education, and preschool special education as indicated below.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay, the next item is the approval to establish the position of Arts Coordinator, K-12. The recommended action is that the Board of Education establishes the position of Arts Coordinator, K-12, as stated below.
I have a motion.
Motion? Second?
I know there's been some questions that have came to me and between Jen and Margaret. So if you'd like to express those.
Well, I was asking, I just wanted to confirm that the Arts Alliance, the former Haldane Arts Booster Club, for those of you who don't know, is now called the Arts Alliance. And the Arts Alliance was so instrumental in getting this coordinator position put together and pushing for it and really seeing the need for it. So my question to Dr. Benante was just to make sure that the Arts Alliance was in the mix, that they were aware that the position was being created, what it looked like. So I just wanted to make sure they were in the loop.
Yes.
And the answer was yes.
Yes, Mona
Which is
and
great.
Corey and I had the opportunity to meet a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about the position, the nature of the position, and the relationship between the individual with whom, or of whom the position is fulfilled, and with their organization. So we look forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And my question, which I sent to you late this afternoon, if I ever hit the button because the phone rang.
Sorry, I would have seen it.
No, you probably didn't see it. So I thought part of this was going to be that the person was going to assist kids who are looking to do arts in college, kind of get their
Okay.
paperwork together and their portfolio together and that kind of thing. I thought that was part of the plan. Was that?
I'm not familiar with that particular responsibility as it's listed here.
I do think it was discussed.
I think it was brought up actually by parents that it would be extremely helpful if there was some sort of assistance in putting together portfolios. And I'm not remembering separate.
Issue. I think it was brought up when we were discussing how people would like to see the arts department grow, and that was one of the comments, that there is a bit of a hole for students who want to go into the arts in college. They don't have that person to help them. I don't remember it being connected to the arts coordinator piece. I could be wrong. I don't know that would be an arts coordinator's job. It would probably be more of an art teacher's position.
I thought it was part of this. I kind of actually remember in a meeting explaining it to one of the kids as they came up, and the kid's face just lit up. Like, oh, there's going to be somebody that can help us now.
I remember that. I just can't remember the details actually behind it, where it was flying. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I mean, this is not, I think one of the things I think for us to be mindful about is the level at which this position was funded, which I can't remember exactly what it was. It's not an enormous amount of money by any stretch of the imagination. And my memory was that one of the main needs, I'm thinking about like all the comments that we got as part of the superintendent search, right, which really, where a lot of folks in the community really emphasized arts, was really more for there to, I think was more of a position like this. I don't disagree with you that, and I have a memory like that as well, and it may have even been on the table. I might be in Margaret's camp as sort of remembering this as possibly being part of the position at one point. When you look, though, at how it's been structured already, I'm not sure it's feasible. And if Corey and Dr. Benante felt like this is what this position should start out with as its first year, I'm not sure it's realistic for us to expand it into what's really a whole other facet of.
If I may, and I just want to clarify, Corey and I did not go through this point by point. We spoke of the position broadly and more on a philosophical level and the nature of the relationship between this individual or whoever fulfills this position and the Arts Alliance. So in fairness to Corey, I want to clarify that. But so there's two catches. One, the last responsibility, perform other related responsibilities as assigned. That could be a catch-all for that. But two, I'm thinking of the student who may be going on into a specialized field of study at post-secondary education, and whether that be the arts or whether that be science, whatever that may be. And the situations I've encountered is where a student would often develop a relationship with one of their teachers to assist them in the application for something. Designating that as a specific person who fulfills this role, I think, may be asking for a lot of that particular individual, as opposed to that being a broad kind of professional responsibility or expectation that all of our educators have when they're being approached by a student who may be pursuing a particular path of study in college or planning to. So I think that's something we have to think about and sit with, to Peggy's point, what becomes a defined responsibility for someone who fulfills a coordinator or a department chair type role versus is a somewhat of a responsibility of an educator no matter what role that they're filling if a student were to come back to them because they're thinking of studying something in college.
Right. Just the applications for kids who are going to the arts are so very different from a kid who is studying math, a kid who is studying any of those things.
I
just don't
remember it was at the when we had the opportunity to speak to all the high school students. I think that's where, where it came up.
Yeah. So let's just keep it in mind that I think that is something that this is a community that's so arts based, that their applications are so very different that they might need a little extra help.
And I agree. I think, Margaret, if our students are defining a need, as an administration and a faculty, we have a responsibility to try to address that. And that's a very real need if some of our students are experiencing it. Whether it happened through this person or whether it happened through some other mechanism, if our kids need help with college applications in a very specialized field, we have a responsibility to help them with that.
Right.
So I think Ms. Sniffen, myself, our guidance staff, and our faculty will be able to help address that need.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. So all those in favor of approving this current position as listed? Aye.
Next item is approval for Group Work. Group Work Inc. to provide facilitation services for the annual administrative retreat on August 21st. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Haldane Central School District Board of Education approves Group Work Inc. 656 Traver Road, Pleasant Valley, New York, 12569, to provide facilitation services for the annual administrative retreat to be held on August 21st, 2018, at a cost not to exceed $1,100.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. This is an approval of a resolution termination of probationary employee part-time bus driver. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby terminates the employment of employee number 2714, a probationary part-time bus driver, effective August 16, 2018.
May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, this is the fund balance conversation. Do Anne or Dr. Benante want to fill us in a little
We'll
more?
let Ann get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
So I give you my broad overview.
Okay. So,
refrigerators.
right, this will lead us into resolution number 6, where if the board decides to use some of the excess fund balance to transfer to the capital reserve, the repair reserve, and the school lunch fund. I think I'm going to start with the easy one first, and that's the school lunch fund, where it has been the practice over the past few years that if there is excess fund balance, and I'm talking about an amount beyond the 4% that's allowed to be unappropriated, that means that we just have 4% fund balance that we don't have to designate a use for. That we have applied an amount equal to the deficit in the school lunch fund of the prior year's closing. Last year it was just under 31,000. I know that while doing the audit this year, it's not done yet. This is preliminary information that I believe is very accurate, that there's still going to be a deficit in the lunch fund. So covering last year's, just know that next year, should there be more money, we'll be having this conversation again. But over and above that, there's approximately $865,000 of excess fund balance. I'm sure that the first question is where, in what part of the budget is that from? Majority of it is in the special education area, which isn't a shock to me, at least, because in a district of our size, we want to have an amount in the budget to cover an unanticipated special ed expenditure. As we know, 1 or 2 students with special needs could be $500,000. The past few years, we've been lucky to have that excess fund balance available. Next year, who knows? I don't have that crystal ball. But this year, we're having this conversation of where we can put that. The other large area where there was available funds was in transportation. We did lose about 5 part-time bus drivers last year. We covered them in-house. It was a bit hectic at times because we had to bring cleaner drivers and our maintenance people in to cover bus runs, but on the other part of that, there were some unexpended salaries. We hope to have a different structure this coming year. So you also might think, well, could we have cut this year's budget? I want to say no to that because we want to get bus drivers to drive the buses instead of our maintenance crew. Also, we're not going to cut our special ed unanticipated appropriations that we have. But if you recall, during budget development time, we did reduce special ed by over $150,000 because we saw that there was this trend over the past couple of years that we weren't going to use it. So we did cut next year's budget by some of that. We might not see such an overage next year. And the other part is some in the benefit department that mostly in the medical area, the medical insurance. I have seen over the past year more people taking individual coverage, opting out. So that's something to look forward to, maybe for the future, that we can look to reduce that as medical insurance costs continue to rise. So, but this year, if we bring everyone back to the recommendation of what to do with the $865,000 in reviewing the facilities issue list that buildings and grounds have really been using as their main document when we have our meetings. Now that we know that we are not going to need $3 or $4 million to repipe the main building. There are some other items on there, though, that perhaps we can get done without a referendum, maybe with the repair. We want to look at the windows. I know that I've been having a conversation with the superintendent that, our cafeteria could really use some attention. We have one freezer, one walk-in freezer outside that last year broke twice. And what we do is we have to move the food over to, actually I want to give a shout out to Cons on 9W. They let us bring our food there and store it for as long as we need to, and they don't charge us. And then because the freezer has to be defrosted and repaired, And then once it's back up down to temperature, we go back and our guys bring all the food. Hurry up, bring the food back, get it in the freezer. And we have a couple of walk-in coolers that they're really year to year they're functioning. Our floor, if you've been in the cafeteria, the floor has rips in it. It's called marmoleum. When it was put in, it was supposed to be the latest and greatest floor product. It didn't really live up to its what it was supposed to be. And the tables, some of them are dangerous, not for the children to sit at, but for our maintenance guys to fold up and move when they clean the floor. It's very difficult for one person to do it. There are new tables that we can purchase. So I'm saying this because don't be surprised at some point you're seeing a presentation of maybe doing something with our cafeteria, and that could fall in the repair reserve. So that's my plug for the cafeteria too, as well as the overage. But again, that's just a lead-in to any conversation of where you would want to go with the excess fund balance.
And just to clarify, the repair reserve requires only a public hearing and a Board of Ed action, whereas the capital reserve requires voter approval.
That's correct.
Right. So whatever we decide to do would be presented to the board in more detail. These are just some thoughts that we had when we were talking about it the other day.
And can you, or Dr. Benante, can you talk a little bit more about the cafeteria school lunch deficit? I know we talk about it every year. I know that it is common amongst all schools, but could you share with the public a reminder of why we have a deficit in this cafeteria?
Sure. Well, as everyone knows, food is very expensive, and we are limited as the amount we can actually charge our students. There's a calculation that I do every year that the formula comes from the state. We can only raise prices a certain amount. Usually it's not enough to cover the cost of the food. A lot of our deficit stems from staff in the cafeteria. We only have 3 full-time people and a handful of 4-hour food service workers. So it's not that have too much staff and people are bumping into each other. That's not the case. The benefits that go along with positions, whether it be the retirement system or medical coverage that we offer just a couple of the workers, what we make on lunches is not enough to cover all of those expenses. And we're not unique. I don't know of a school district that's operating at a profit. We do try to have even some creative ways to boost the revenue in the cafeteria. They can make money in the cafeteria if there's an event. Instead of paying an outside agency, the people will, in the cafeteria, the workers will provide food for an event, or whether it's a meeting, and the general fund will pay the school lunch fund. And we're going to pay someone. We might as well reduce our deficit. I have to hand it to them. They do a great job in the cafeteria, and school lunch always has a bad rap, but they really care, and they work hard, and I'm very proud of them. So that's really what causes the deficit every year.
Thank you.
Is the fact that we can't charge enough. And if you really, I'll go one step further. The cost that we're allowed to charge has to equate to whatever we're getting reimbursed for anyone who's on free and reduced lunch. We can't charge less or more to someone who's paying full price than what we're receiving from the state and federal government for a free and reduced lunch. So that has to be equal.
And we've seen a slight increase in that number, which probably would result in, even though we're trying these creative ways, it's probably offsetting the increase
It has
in.
helped.
Right.
You know, a couple of years ago, the deficit was $70,000, and now it's down to 30. So we're getting closer.
Thank you very much for that information. I know. Yeah.
Point out one more thing. The number always sounds kind of alarming, I think, to the public, you know, that we have 865,000 plus the 21 from the school lunch. So a little under $900,000 in fund balance, right? And that sounds really alarming, like, oh my gosh, they have all this extra money. But I've been relating it to the actual budget. And I don't know exactly what the percentage is, 1.5%. But if we could all be that close in our budgeting of anything we do at our house or, you know, our grocery shopping, it's actually really impressive, you know, and all of us set out this budget, and to only be off by such a small amount, you know, relatively speaking, is actually really impressive. So even though the number sounds kind of alarming, you know, in the big picture, it's actually a very small amount to be off.
And also, additionally, most school districts, it wouldn't be wiser, I don't even know if you're allowed to, you're only really supposed to use up to 95% of your budget.
You're allowed to carry, if you're referring to your unallocated fund balance of 4%, which with our auditors would say is a sign of fiscal health for the school district.
Right.
So you should be carrying a certain amount of reserve funding and also unallocated fund balance in your budget to be in a healthy position financially.
Right. And that's really where we're at. And we've had the same discussion, thankfully, the past couple of years, or at least for as long as I've been on the board. You want to be in that position.
Exactly. And does a great job. And as Ann indicated, you know, some of it is anticipated just in case we have a unique need. Special education being a good example for that. So, you know, you want to be prepared. And obviously, when we come in at the end of the year, we want to have an open discussion about what we're doing with the funding. And I think as Ann has illustrated tonight, we definitely have other projects that we can commit the funding to that wouldn't have necessarily been a part of the budgeting process last or into this school year, but now we're in a position to do, and we should.
Good.
We all agree transporting our food back and across the river when the power goes out is not a good idea. Although it reminds me of the time in college when my power went out and we put it in snowbanks for a little while just to keep it cold, but that wasn't too effective, and we won't do that here.
I have a couple of specific questions, if it's okay. It was really useful to see the adjusted budget and the estimated on all the revenue lines, which was fascinating for me. And a couple of them came in fairly differently than we'd expected, especially on the plus revenue. So I was wondering whether you had any insight on it, especially transportation aid, which was several $100,000 higher than we had originally estimated at the beginning of the year. Any sense of why that?
Well, when we get our budget, our estimated revenues in January from the governor's executive proposal, transportation aid is separated. So when we create the budget, we have the categories as they are given to us in the executive budget proposal. However, when the money comes into us, transportation aid is not separated, it's just lumped in with our foundation aid. So when that money comes into the bank and I record it, it's just a foundation aid. So if you look, I think there's one category that's over by almost the same amount as that's under.
That was it.
That's because they pay us different from what they estimate.
Got it. So they pay in a lump sum, and we basically have to tease it
They
apart.
pay in a lump sum, and there's no way, they don't give you a breakdown.
Got it.
So it all goes into one code. I could separate it at the end of the year, but it's pretty clear that that's where it is.
And just for the recommendation, so we currently have both a capital repair and a capital reserves. So the recommendation at some point will be to increment them by, I think, the 465 and the 400,
Correct.
right? Okay, great.
And then there'll be other discussions on how to use those reserves that have been put aside.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 6.
So this is the approval of the resolution for allocating the fund balance. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the following resolution, that the Board of Education authorizes the use of excess fund balance for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2018 in the following manner. Transfer to capital reserve, $465,000. Transfer to capital repair reserve, $400,000. Transfer to school lunch fund, $31,000.
I have a motion.
So moved. Second.
This is just, we didn't want to split it evenly. You know me. It's all right. I'll let it go. You thought about that?
Testing you. Well, we thought someone's going to ask why 465 and why 400, and we didn't say it would be Laura, but
Like, just make it even. But no, it's all right. It's fine. Anybody?
we did look. With all due respect, we did look specifically at the capital repair reserve, if I'm not mistaken, speaking on the note of what was potentially in need of repair in the cafeteria. And so we were working with the anticipated costs associated with that, even though we have not formally presented it to the board this evening. I don't want it to be construed as if we have, and we're working with that in anticipating what we would need in each respective area.
And I think you said this at the beginning, and just make sure that I heard it correctly. Capital requires a public vote. Repair reserve is Board of Ed.
Correct.
Okay.
Public hearing. So
Public
we
hearing,
would
okay.
have an opportunity for public input,
Yeah.
but it's much, I would say, less formal than, voting at the ballot.
Thank you.
Which we did with the bathrooms. We held a public hearing.
Oh, that's right, that was just one.
Public hearing. Yeah. All right, so all those in favor? Aye.
Okay, here we are, the approval of the resolution to confirm the tax rolls, authorize the tax levy, and approve the tax warrant for the 2018-2019 school year. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the following resolution to confirm the tax rolls, authorize the tax levy, and approve the tax warrant for the following school year. And I'm not sure if I should read this entire thing. No? Okay, thank you.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. I was just going to say we all have to, so just hang tight before we move on. Okay.
Okay, and item 8 is the approval of the resolution to authorize the execution of the APPR implementation certification form for 2017-2018. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby authorizes the Board President and Superintendent of Schools to execute the implementation certification form for its annual professional performance review for classroom teachers and building principals covered pursuant to Education Law Section 3012D and Part 30-2 of the Rules of the Board of Regents.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, that concludes that portion of the business meeting. And if there's any communication from the public, please feel free at this time to. No? Okay. With that said, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.